other avenues of public opinion formation, all of that is enlightened self-interest. Well, it is self-interest, and we think self-interest probably makes the economy go. It's not that self-interest is bad, it's that the compounded effect of all of that self-interested behavior, particularly when you have so much inequality and you have so many resources at the top, the compounded effect of that selfish interest behavior is to unbalance the system even more. Myth number 2. Myth number 1 is that you can't separate market from government. You really have to ask who benefits and why. How do we get it back for us, for most of us? Myth number 2, you're paid what you are worth. You laugh. Well, I mean, there is a tautology there, right? You're paid what you're worth in the market because that's what you're paid. But usually when somebody says you're paid what you're worth, they are meaning more than that tautology. They usually are meaning something that has a moral content. That is, you are paid what you're worth in some morally justifiable way. That's the usual meaning of you're paid what you're worth. But if you follow myth number 1 and the logic of myth number 1, you see that if the market is being created, the moral justification in the market may not be there. In other words, you are not paid what you are worth in a moral way. You are paid what you're worth in a moral way only to the extent that the market is organized in a morally justifiable fashion. I mean, you have hedge fund managers that are taking home $1 billion a year. Are they worth $1 billion a year? Well, not in any moral significant way. They may be getting $1 billion a year because they get all the inside information that you don't get. You have more and more people who are called working poor. Now, that's a category of people, the working poor, that at least in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, even the 90s, we didn't have that many people who were working full-time and poor. I mean, our poverty population tended to be people who were not working, who couldn't work, who for some reason or another were kicked out of the employment market or not able to work or disabled. No, now we have people who are working full-time and they are poor. And simultaneously, we have another group of people, not nearly as large, but they are also increasing. They are the non-working rich. Mostly heirs to vast fortunes. We're in the midst, by the way, according to many researchers, we're in the midst of the largest intergenerational transfer of wealth in history from very, very wealthy people to their heirs. Now, those two groups, the working poor and the non-working rich, both of them, to some extent, violate a very basic meritocratic principle that we all agree on. We thought we did. There's also the CEOs. Now, in the 1960s, chief executive officers of big companies were earning, on average, about 20 times what the typical employee was earning. Now, the CEO of a large company is earning about 300 times what the typical employee is earning. Now, are they worth that? Well, they're not worth it in any other than the tautological sense that that's what they're earning. There's nothing that is socially worthwhile 300 times versus 20 times. In fact, one might argue that many of those CEOs are now creating, to some extent, because most people are not prospering, maybe they're worth much less than they used to be. You get my point. The whole idea of you earn what you're worth is highly questionable when the market is under the influence and constantly being reorganized by people who are very, very wealthy and big corporations and banks and so forth. And now myth number 3. I don't want to give you too much. I don't want to give the plot away here. Because if I give the plot away, but I'm just giving you a little bit. Myth number 3 is that the most important issues and questions that divide liberals and conservatives have to do with how much we tax the wealthy and redistribute to everybody else. Now, it's an important question. I grant you it's a very important question. But by focusing on taxing and redistributing, we are missing a very big part of the puzzle. We're missing all of the, what I call, pre-distributions upward from you and me and most people to big corporations and the banks and their executives and major shareholders. What do I mean? I mean, for example, you and I and everybody else pays more for the pharmaceuticals that we buy here in the United States than anybody in any other advanced industrial country pays. Now, why is that? Well, partly it's because pharmaceutical companies can take their patents. Remember, I was talking about intellectual property a little bit while ago. They can take their patents and they can extend those patents artificially by paying the producers of generic equivalents not to introduce the generic equivalents. It's called pay for delay. Now, it is perfectly legal in the United States. It is not legal in most other advanced industrial countries. But you see what that does? That means that you and I pay more, and that's a pre-distribution upward. I say pre-distribution because it's inside the market. We don't even pay attention to it. We don't even know about it. There was a time not that many years ago when we could buy our pharmaceuticals from Canada. Do you remember that? Anybody remember that? That wasn't that long ago. That's illegal now. Can't do that. And I could give you many other examples of what's happened in the United States. Medicare, the big Medicare program, no longer has the capacity legally. It is no longer legally allowed to negotiate with drug companies for lower pharmaceutical prices. Now, all of this is the result of political power. This is the political power of the pharmaceutical companies, and it results in a direct pre-distribution from you and me upward. Or to take another example, internet service. Some of you groan. Do I suspect that perhaps your internet service is not quite what you want? Well, you don't know the half of it. I mean, we in the United States, we pay more for our internet service and get slower service than the citizens of almost any other advanced industrial country. Now, why is that? It's because 80% of us don't have a choice of internet service provider. And when you don't have a choice, guess what? You end up paying more and you often get lousy service. And why don't we have a choice? Does it have anything to do with power and politics? You bet. I took a plane from San Francisco this morning. People ask me, in my free-floating focus group, sometimes they come up to me, and this was about a month and a half ago, somebody just came up to me and asked me, why are tickets so expensive? Fuel costs have gone down. Why is it still so expensive to travel when fuel costs have gone down? And I introduced myself. And I explained, as I'm going to explain to you, that 15 years ago, we had 9 major airlines. Now we have 4 major airlines, and through many hubs, there's only 1 or 2. Now, when you have that degree of concentration, guess what? You don't have much choice, and they can coordinate. or a less polite word is collude. And we could go through the entire economy. Look at what is happening to health insurers. They are merging. Why are they merging? Is it just economies of scale? Maybe some economies of scale. They're also merging because less competition gives them more power to set prices, and also less competition gives them more political power. Do you get my gist? Wherever you look, you see pre-distributions upward. We are paying more. And even the example I gave you of bankruptcy loads the deck. Certain people can use bankruptcy. If you can use bankruptcy, that means you can get a better deal with your creditors. If you can't use bankruptcy, you have no bargaining leverage with your creditors. That means it's a pre-distribution upward for you. And when you add up all of these upward pre-distributions, you get a total that is much vaster, much bigger than the redistributions that people are talking about they'd like to have downward. Or another way of stating that is if you got rid of all the pre-distributions upward, you wouldn't need nearly as much redistribution downward. But a lot of this is hidden. And a lot of it escapes notice because we don't talk about it, we don't know it. We are too focused on the old ideological debates over market versus government, whether you get paid what you're worth, overtaxing and redistributing. If we could get around or beyond those old debates and really see the system for what it actually is, we might be able to actually have a constructive conversation about how we all reassert our power over our democracy and over our economy. In fact, if you wanted to be terribly conspiratorial about it, and I'm not a conspiratorialist, but if you wanted to be terribly conspiratorial, you might say that there are some people or some groups or some institutions, big corporations, Wall Street, others, who might prefer that we not make these kinds of inquiries, who might like us debating market versus government and paid what you're worth and taxing and redistributing, because that will keep us all angry at each other. And we won't discover our commonality. It's very easy to get into your own bubble. I know that. I used to teach and live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, its own bubble, an ideological bubble, a blue city in a blue state. And then about 10 years ago, I drove all across the country. I got a job in Berkeley, California. And after driving across the country, I found myself, I got a house in Berkeley, and I began teaching at Berkeley. And guess what? I was in the same bubble. 3,000 miles apart, same place. Better weather. By the way, I love to drive across the country. I don't know how many. Have you driven across America? It is a wonderful drive. It's an opportunity to get out of your bubble a little bit. And I drove, 10 years ago, I was one of the first purchasers of a Mini Cooper. And I drove my Mini Cooper across, and I got to Oklahoma, and I found there were no Mini Coopers in Oklahoma. There's not one. There may be one now, but there weren't any Mini Coopers in Oklahoma. And so I was actually in a gas line outside Oklahoma City, waiting for gas, and I was in my Mini Cooper, and these two truckers came up, and they tapped on the window, and I lowered the window, and I said, "Can I help you?" They said, "What is this?" I said, it's a Mini Cooper. And they said, how does anybody fit in there? Well, I got out and I stood up. I said, no problem. They looked very stricken. And I said, I'm from Massachusetts, and everybody there is under 5 feet tall. We're all in our bubbles. There's actually, if we get out of the bubbles, we might actually discover, it's possible, we can discover there is more commonality. Getting out of the bubbles and also getting out of the ideological fixed debates, we might discover more commonality than there actually appears to be. Now, the media doesn't help. I was debating a conservative economist about, I don't know, not that long ago on television, and we were actually agreeing. We discovered, because when you got under the sloganeering and all under the kind of propagandistic stuff, when we got down to the specifics, we discovered that we actually had much more agreement than we expected we would. And we came to a station break, and in my earbud, the producer said, "You've got to be angrier." I said, look, I think we're modeling for the country something that is very, very useful and very important. The country can see that a Republican and a Democrat actually, if you get down to details, there's a lot more agreement than appears. And isn't that good? And she said, no. The producer said, no, you have to appear angry. You just have to be angrier. I said, why? And she said, because you have the entire public watching television and surfing through hundreds of channels, and they'll only stop when there is a kind of a gladiator contest, people shouting at each other. I said, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to be angry for no reason. I'm not going to shout. And she said, you must. I said, no, I don't. She said, we have 6 seconds left. You have to. And at that point, I lost my temper. But you see, again, a lot of this is for the cameras. My first job in Washington, my first full-time job was in the Ford administration. That was a Republican administration. Remember that? And my boss, my direct boss, was a man named Robert Bork. Do you remember him? Well, I actually, he had been my law professor. I liked him. I mean, we didn't agree. We didn't agree on the First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, Eighth, and Ninth Amendments to the Constitution, but we got along very well. And when I was in college, I was an intern, and I was an intern on Capitol Hill. And my job in college was I was an intern for Robert F. Kennedy. I ran his signature machine. You know, those were you have to just make sure all of the letters were lined up perfectly so the signature machine worked. And I got so bored halfway through the summer. I was so bored, I snuck in at night. Don't keep it in this room, if you would, please, because it could be a federal offense. I snuck in at night and I wrote on his stationery, on Robert F. Kennedy's stationery, to my friends. You know, dear Mr. Dworkin, congratulations on having the largest nose in New York State. Robert F. Kennedy. My friends still have these on their walls. And then one day, out of the Senate elevator, Robert F. Kennedy actually appeared. First time I had seen him. And he was surrounded by his aides, and he looked very, very, I mean, it was just such my heart almost stopped. And he looked at me, and he said, how's the summer going, Bob? He knew my name. He knew my name. And I couldn't speak. I just opened my mouth and nothing came out. But had he asked me to go on and work his signature machine for the next year, I would have done it. I was so inspired and enthralled. Those were inspiring times in Washington. They were not great times for the country. I mean, remember, 67, 68 was not, no matter what people say about the romantic, wonderful 67, 68, it was a horrible time. The cities were burning, and in 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated, and ultimately Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated, and then Richard Nixon was made president, and Vietnam was taking a huge toll. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible time, but we got through it. It was much worse than things are now, but it was not nearly as partisan. There were people called liberal Republicans. I know it's hard to believe, but there were liberal Republicans, and there were very, very moderate. There were conservative Democrats, and people socialized in Washington with one another. Now, not everybody was noble. Not everybody had the public good in mind all the time. But it was not a city of anger. Let me summarize a little bit, and I want to get to your questions. Already have some people lined up. You've already lined up. How do you know what I'm going to say?
We read the book.
Oh, you read the book. Well, I want to end on this issue of anger. Because not only do people who stop me in the airport, my own free-floating focus group, express a lot of dismay and confusion and worry, but there is a lot of anger out there as well. And a lot of the anger has to do with the fact that people feel like they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing, and they're falling behind. And they worry their children will not do as well. And they're getting stirred up. You see, we are on the cusp of a real populist wave. And that's a cause of both optimism, but also a cause for worry. It's a cause for optimism because, as in the late 1890s, and as again a few times in American history, those populist waves, when enough people are riled up enough, give rise to major political changes. I mean, I wrote this book long before Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. I'm sorry to use both those names in the same sentence, but no, this is not going to be partisan. Before either of them made an appearance, but I say in the book that the major division politically in this country in the future will not be Democrats versus Republicans or liberals versus conservatives. It will be establishment versus anti-establishment. It will be populist versus status quo. And I didn't think it would happen quite as fast. The good news is that it's happening, and it's happening not only in terms of the Bernie Sanders campaign and to a different extent in Donald Trump and elsewhere. It's happening as I travel around the country, all over the country. I met with small farmers in Minnesota who are organizing against some of the big factory farms and big agriculture. I met in St. Louis with small business people who are organizing against some of the big Walmart-type big-box retailers and Amazon that's driving them out of business. I met with a Fight for 15 people in several cities that are determined to get a $15 minimum wage. I've met with people who don't even know how much they have in common, but they are organizing, and they are organizing in the same direction, creating what John Kenneth Galbraith, the person to whom I dedicate this book, my mentor, once called countervailing power. John Kenneth Galbraith, in the 1950s, wrote a book called American Capitalism, The Concept of Countervailing Power, in which he posited that the main reason that so many people were benefiting from the economy of the 1950s, why we were busily creating the largest middle class the world had ever seen, was because the legacy of the New Deal had created these sources and centers of power that countervailed the big corporations, the big banks, and the very wealthy. Centers of countervailing power like local banks and regional banks countervailed the power of Wall Street. Countervailing powers such as small businesses and also farm cooperatives and also, not the least, labor unions. And what John Kenneth Galbraith saw was that the countervailing power was critical to balance our democracy and balance our economy. And what has happened, if you follow my logic, is that we've lost these centers of countervailing power. And the good news is they are beginning to come back. We are on the cusp of a fundamental political change. We may not feel it every day. Some of you may be feeling a little bit beleaguered, but it is happening. The worry, however, is that populism comes in two different faces. Historically, in the world, in the United States, one face is reformist populism, where people say, we are determined to save capitalism from its own excesses and save our democracy, rebuild these institutions, refashion it so it works for everybody rather than for the few. But when people are frustrated and angry, there is also a different form of populism. The United States doesn't have this different form of populism historically all that often. We have, let's call it authoritarian populism. It's a kind of populism where there still is a great deal of anger and discontent and determination to overthrow the ruling class and the status quo in the name of average working people, but the difference is that it is not founded on reform of democracy. It's founded on a strongman who says, follow me, I will change everything. And by the way, your enemy is them. Authoritarian populism has scapegoats. It blames. The world has suffered a great deal because of authoritarian populism. America has not suffered that much. Wisconsin actually has been the source of both kinds of populism. Robert La Follette, the great reform populism, and progressive. Joe McCarthy, somebody different. Blaming, scaring, using fear as a device to build political power. We must beware of authoritarian capitalism and authoritarian populism. But we will prevail. We, the people. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now I hope that I have, who are you? No, I know you are. This is Connor, and Connor, I want to thank you for this wonderful festival, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Robert. Let's say thank you to Robert one more time.
No, you don't. No, don't. Don't bother saying it. Thank you.
We're gonna skip questions and go right to the signing.
Oh, really?
It's 8:30, so we went to our hour.
Oh. Well, Connor wants to skip the questions and go right to the book signing, but I'd like to have a couple of questions. Is that okay? Just a couple.
It's okay.
If you will promise me to come and have me sign your book. Yes? Okay. Let's do just a couple of questions. All right?
Okay, those two guys?
Yeah. So let's back. You signed up and you bought the book, and I think you deserve to have a question.
Times. Here's a country.
I'll repeat your question if people can't hear it. Yeah.
A Western industrial country that. A Western industrial. I don't think it's on.
I'll repeat the question. I'll change it.
Germany is a Western industrial country that did not outsource its manufacturing base. It runs trade surpluses. Its middle class works less hours than we do here. You have free education, university education for those who want it. You have free health care. How is their society different than ours, and how can we get there?
So the question is about Germany, and you're pointing out the fact that Germany is a more egalitarian society right now, and not only does it have free health care and free universities, but it also, you didn't mention, but very important, it has co-determination. That is, workers are much more actively engaged in and responsible for the management of companies, and there are many other features, meaning that the top 1% in Germany, instead of taking home 20% of total income in Germany, as they do here, the top 1% gets closer to 11% of total income. And by some measures, the median worker in Germany is doing better than the median worker in the United States. How do they do it? Well, one way they do it is they have had a very, very long tradition going back to Bismarck. That is a social democratic tradition. But let me be quick to jump in here and say there is nothing inconsistent between capitalism and social democracy. Germany is a capitalist country. Denmark, Sweden, Norway, they're all capitalist. Capitalism is the basic economic system. Even in communist China, capitalism is becoming the basic economic system. The real question, and again, I think that it's wrong to get involved in isms. The real question you are raising, and I think it's the central question, is why do they have a system that's working for so many people, rather for an oligarchy or an aristocracy or a plutocracy or whatever you want to call it at the top? I think therein lies a kind of a culture, a tradition that came out, in my view, really out of the embers of Nazism and World War II. Not so much the social democratic tradition going back to Bismarck, but really a much more recent sense that they were all in it together. They had a social, in a sense, responsibility to each other. Although that social contract is being tested by a lot of immigrants. And let me be very clear on this point. We are a nation of immigrants, almost all of us, except for the Native Americans and some people forcibly pulled over here. We know how to assimilate people much easier than almost anybody else. We understand that immigrants are not our enemies. That is fundamental to the American creed. Thank you.
Thanks for your work and your writing and your comments tonight, Mr. Secretary. I've just finished a master's degree in public policy at the Robert La Follette School of Public Affairs here at UW-Madison. And over the last 2 years, I've had the opportunity to sit in a lecture from Professor Bob Haveman. It was called "The Labor Market is a Mess." He went into great detail about how this recovery really has been dramatically different from previous recoveries, and some of the why as well. We have the Institute for Research on Poverty here that has established an excellent seminar series. So what I've seen for the last 2 years is a lot of the data, the facts that tell us just how broken things really are right now. And at the same time, you know, as a class worrier, you know this, there are a tremendous number of people out there who are deluded into voting against their own economic self-interest.
So why is it that people vote against their economic self-interest?
And that
I don't want to anticipate your question.
Well, I mean, basically what I want to know is, as someone who has excelled in both academia and in government at the highest levels. What would you suggest? What are your thoughts about this willing disregard for those facts and data? Part of what makes me worry about which type of populism we get is that people aren't really willing to pay attention.
Well, look at one of the problems we get into is that not only do we debate the wrong things, but we also divide around the wrong things. That is, there is unfortunately a tendency, and this is particularly true among certain politicians at certain places and certain times, to create in the middle class or working class a sense that their enemies are the poor or the immigrants or foreigners or union workers or however else you want to slice the pie, so that we all end up fighting over a smaller and smaller slice of the pie without even realizing that the slice is getting smaller and smaller. And that fighting is blinding people to the larger economic story. My hope, again, with regard to this book, my hope with regard to all of you, is that we can begin to undertake a dialogue that will enable people to see not only their economic self-interest, but their interest in a vibrant democracy. That the number one issue, it seems to me, is to get big money out of politics. Again, I want to thank all of you, and thank you for coming tonight. It was a great, great privilege. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you listen 1 second, the signing rules have changed. We're going to sign on the second floor. You'll head out toward the stairs and you'll go down. There will be a table there. Robert will start signing in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Oh. Good luck. I hope you get home. Oh, I will. Is this the first time you've heard him? Thank you again. I really appreciate it. And I love it. I am.
I'll probably be on.
I'm glad I came. Yeah, very much. Me too. I can.
That was Robert Reich, whose book is titled Saving Capitalism on the American Economic System. The final author presentation from the Wisconsin Book Festival will begin shortly. While we wait, here's a tour of the Special Collections Library at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.